My name is Mads Hansen. I'm 19 years old, and I live in a small Danish village called Skavlan. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone else, where the air smells of pine and damp soil, and the silence at night feels almost heavy. The village is surrounded by deep forests and narrow country roads, the kind that twist and vanish into the fog. I live with my mother, father, and my little sister Freya, who's 12. Freya is endlessly curious and a bit stubborn, always poking around in places she shouldn't, always bringing home strange things she finds. The story began last autumn, in mid-September. The leaves were already turning orange and red, and in the mornings, the fog hung so low it wrapped around the houses like a ghostly blanket. One chilly afternoon, Freya came home from school carrying a faded cloth bag. I was sitting on the porch reading when she skipped up to me. "Mads, look what I found," she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. From the bag, she pulled out a doll. It was old, but beautiful in a way that made me uneasy. The doll wore a delicate blue dress, and long strands of golden thread had been sewn into its head for hair. Its painted mouth had a faint smile. But the eyes, deep, brown, and oddly moist, looked almost alive, as if they were staring into me rather than at me. I forced a smile. "Where did you find it?" "By the road near the forest," she said. "It was lying under a tree. It's so pretty, I couldn't just leave it there." Something about that road made my stomach twist. It was a sharp bend known for accidents. Locals said it had claimed more lives than any other stretch in the area. When my mother saw the doll, she frowned. "Freya, you shouldn't bring home things you find lying around. You don't know where it's been." But Freya wouldn't hear it. She cleaned the doll, combed its thread hair with her fingers, and placed it proudly on the nightstand beside her bed. For the first few days, nothing happened. But soon, Freya began to change. She wasn't as cheerful. She spent more and more time in her room. At night, I'd hear her talking in whispers to someone who wasn't there. One night, I got up for a glass of water and found her sitting on the floor in the corner of her room, holding the doll in her lap. She was crying softly. "Freya, what's wrong?" I asked. She startled, quickly wiping her tears. "Nothing. I just had a bad dream." But as I turned to leave, my eyes caught on the doll's face. Its eyes shimmered, wet, as if it had been crying too. From then on, strange things started happening in the house. Doors would slam shut on their own. Cups and plates would crash to the floor without reason. At night, I'd hear someone whisper my name outside the window, but when I looked, there was no one there. The worst was one cold morning when my parents were about to leave for the market. They found Freya locked in her bedroom. The door wasn't locked from the outside, it was barricaded from the inside, though she was too small to have moved the heavy desk that now blocked it. When we finally forced it open, she was trembling, her eyes wide with terror. "She won't let me go," she whispered. A week later, an unusual man came to our village. He was tall, with a weathered face, a long beard, and a black coat that seemed too heavy for the mild autumn air. His name was Elias Mortensen. I heard from the neighbors that he used to be a priest, but now traveled helping people with unusual problems. Somehow, Elias came straight to our house. When he saw the doll, his expression hardened. He sat down, closed his eyes, and began muttering prayers in Danish and Old Latin. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and grim. This doll belonged to a girl named Anna Svensson. Last winter, her family was driving to visit relatives. They never made it past that forest road. The car crashed on the bend. They all died, including Anna. But her spirit stayed, trapped inside this doll. My mother gasped. I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. Anna doesn't want to be alone, Elias continued. She chooses someone, and once she does, she won't let them go. Your sister is her choice. According to Elias, the doll's power was strongest at 3 a.m. That was the only time it could be destroyed. We would have to lock Freya inside her room, safe from the doll, while Elias took it outside to burn. If we succeeded, Anna's spirit would finally be free. That night, we prepared. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. According to Elias, the doll's power was strongest at 3 a.m. That was the only time it could be destroyed. We would have to lock Freya inside her room, safe from the doll, while Elias took it outside to burn. If we succeeded, Anna's spirit would finally be free. That night, we prepared. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. At 2:50 a.m., the fog outside was so thick it swallowed the garden whole. We locked Freya in her room despite her pleading. Suddenly, from behind the door, she screamed. Mads! Open the door. She's here. The wood rattled violently, as if something inside was slamming against it. Elias held the doll firmly, whispering prayers under his breath. He lit the fire. As the flames licked at the blue dress, a sound filled the air, a high-pitched, heart-wrenching cry. It wasn't Freya. It was the voice of a little girl, sobbing as if her heart had broken. The fire burned hotter, the crying grew louder, then faded into the fog. When the flames died, nothing remained but a small pile of black ash. The next morning, Freya was back to her old self, laughing, running around, her eyes bright again. The house felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. Before leaving, Elias looked at me and said, "Not all spirits are evil, Mads. But once they cling to the living, they will never let go, unless you set them free." I watched him disappear into the mist, the sound of that child's cry still echoing in my mind. Even now, on quiet nights, I swear I can hear it, faint and far away, somewhere beyond the forest road.